Opa, algum BR aí pra fazer o comboio pesado aí ou não?
The dentist just said sooner or later they're all going to fall out.
TDC's Smile in a Day dental implants can give you a full set of fixed teeth and a natural-looking smile in just one day. We exchange your fixed teeth for a full permanent set after 3 months. Book your consultation. Visit smileinaday.co.uk or call TDC Harley Street on 0203 7334 986.
This is LBC with Eddie Mayer. Call 0345 6060 973.
Philip texts to say Mary should get half of all their assets, no matter how much her husband worked. She worked bringing up a family, which isn't easy. I'm divorced, says Philip. After 24 years, we settled on 50-50 of everything. This is only fair. After Bill and Melinda Gates' sad announcement, we're hearing from listeners about just how common that is, reaching a point a little later in life, sometimes after decades together, where for all sorts of reasons, and not because anything cataclysmic has happened, you just want to go. We have Mary's husband made that decision. Perhaps you've made that decision at some point. 0345 6060 973. Also, by the way, we've had a few listeners getting in touch about what Claire was talking about earlier, Claire Barrett. This breathing space scheme to help people in England and Wales with their debt problems. Claire's spelling of her first name always makes it difficult to find. So let me just spell it again for the people who didn't get it down. It's C-L, A for Apple, E for Echo, R for Romeo. So it's C-L-A-E-R. And so on Twitter, it's C-L-A-E-R-B for Claire Barrett. So it's at C-L-A-E-R-B. If it's any easier for you, on my Twitter account, which is Eddie Mair, EDDIEMAIR, I've obviously retweeted that, but I don't recommend you follow me because I don't really do anything on Twitter. Whereas Sheila Fogarty does, and I recommend her wholeheartedly. 0345 6060 973 if you want to get in touch. Because you've been on a lower budget through what Bill and Melinda Gates are going through now. As always at this time, we'll bring you the LBC COVID report. Here is Charlotte Lynch.
Eddie, international travel from England could be allowed in less than 2 weeks, but Downing Street has admitted the NHS app may not be ready in time for use as a COVID passport. It was hoped that it could be used to show proof of being vaccinated or having had a recent negative coronavirus test. Alex McCarris, LBC aviation analyst, says the longer this is delayed, countries will likely make their own rules.
It demonstrates that countries are going to go their own way with this. Greece have said that they will accept the little blue card that you get after the vaccine appointment with the NHS. Portugal, on the other hand, another EU member state, they have said, no way, we're accepting this. Anyone can find it from the corner shop and it can be forged. And so we need to wait for an integrated app with a safer and more secure solution.
We still don't know which destinations are on the government's green list. That's countries which people can go to without having to quarantine. We are told that more details will be released this week when the government sets out its traffic light system. Currently, international travel is set to resume on May the 17th. Now, a total of more than 20 million cases of COVID-19 have now been recorded in India. Another emergency shipment of medical equipment will be sent there from the UK this week, with 600 pieces already delivered. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says the support must go a step further.
I urge them to increase that where they can. It's got to be a global response, but I think it is a reminder that notwithstanding the successful rollout of the vaccine here, we won't be truly through this, until across the world we've got the virus completely under control.
The Indian Premier League cricket has been suspended indefinitely after an increasing number of players tested positive for COVID-19. Campaigners are calling for the relaxation of care home visits in England to be written into law over fears that some homes may choose not to follow the new guidance. From today, residents in England can receive visits in low-risk settings like going out for a walk without having to self-isolate for 14 days on their return. Sally Ebden is the manager of Pendennis Care Home in Paynton in Devon. She is cautious.
At the moment, we can in some way have some level of control, and I say that in a good way, with when people come into the home wearing PPE. But once somebody has left the home or the grounds, there's kind of some concern about what may happen when they're away from us, really, around infection and who they're meeting.
Wales Deputy Chief Medical Officer is urging caution as the country has seen a further easing of COVID-19 restrictions. He's asking people to be careful as 2 households are now able to form an exclusive bubble to meet indoors, and gyms and beer gardens have reopened. Infection rates there are at their lowest level in 8 months. In the latest 24-hour period, a further 1,946 new cases of COVID-19 have been reported in the UK. There have been a further 4 deaths recorded within 28 days of a positive test. This, as a survey from the Office for National Statistics has suggested that fewer secondary school pupils and staff in England tested positive for COVID-19 shortly after schools fully reopened following the 3rd national lockdown compared to the autumn term. The new findings from the ONS also show around 84% of respondents said they fully complied with the self-isolation requirements for the entire 10-day period after testing positive for COVID. That's based on responses from adults in England between the 12th and the 16th of April. And a man has been fined for using a fake negative coronavirus test to board a flight to Egypt. The 27-year-old said he was trying to visit an unwell relative who was stopped at Heathrow last month and has been fined £180.
Charlotte Lynch reporting 6:45. More news now from Thomas Watts.
2 former British soldiers accused of murdering an IRA commander have been formally acquitted. A police officer who used a taser against a former footballer has gone on trial accused of murder and manslaughter. Rescuers are continuing to search the scene of a metro train crash in Mexico City. Showery rain moving south across central parts of the UK with clear spells following from the north, a low of -1.
LBC Travel, I'm J-Louise Knight, and a car's broken down on the anti-clockwise M25 this evening. It's blocking one lane between 25 the A10 and 24 Potters Bar. Still anti-clockwise at junction 27. The slip road onto the northbound M11 stays shut. That's to recover a lorry that overturned earlier. Sunbury on Thames, the A308, that's Staines Road East, shut both ways with a serious accident near Kempton Park Racecourse. It's slow out of town on the A2 to an accident after the Ebbsfleet turn-off. There is delays of 40 minutes heading north or out of town on the A12 towards the Redbridge roundabout where a car's broken down. The south sector at Hither Green still blocked with an accident at Torridon Road. The A3 stays down to one lane out of town after the Morden junction with a dangerous structure, and on the trains there are severe delays on TfL rail from Liverpool Street to Shenfield.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
On the news hour, case against 2 former soldiers collapses in Northern Ireland. Who's going to win the Hartlepool by-election? And more on the Scottish Parliament elections.
Ian Dale on LBC.
Ibiza was a non-starter. Went camping then? Yep. Mo next door was like eBay pre-loved tents, sustainable and cheap. Aye, his wife Rita chimed in. Oh, get a new rainproof jacket from Brand Outlet on eBay. Save a bomb. But guess who came into the tent in the morning? Mo and Rita? Nope. A cow. A cow? A cow. Licked my face before I woke up.
Jeez, you got mad eBay deals and a morning kiss. Bargain. More ways to win when you buy, sell, eBay.
This is LBC.
I'm walking a bit more these days. For those semi-skimmed milk and we're down to the last sheet of kitchen roll type trips. It's not just getting my steps in. It's the other stuff, you know. Seeing a bit more of the neighbourhood. Cool buildings. A bit of green space. And the out-of-tune postman. Wherever you're going, there's good in every journey when you bike it or walk it. Download the TfL Go app to find walking and cycling routes. For the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Make a great gut decision, because health begins on the inside. Well Bio capsules contain billions of live cultures, with calcium which contributes to the normal function of digestive enzymes. Well Bio from Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company. Available from Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com.
For many of us, future plans don't come much bigger than moving home. That's why at the Halifax, we want to make sure nothing gets in your way. So if you're unable to visit us in branch for a mortgage appointment face-to-face, we're more than happy to come to you. Every week, our colleagues are doing over 3,000 mortgage appointments by phone and video call, so we can keep your moving plans moving along. Halifax, it's a people thing.
As lockdown unlocks, it's time for business to bounce back. Page Tiger makes it simple to create digital documents.
Awesome newsletters to bring back customers. Just brilliant briefing packs to prepare employees returning to the workplace.
Oh, fantastic standout digital decks to supercharge sales.
Bounce back now. Go to pagetiger.com.
Our baby and toddler event is back at Morrison's, and we've loads of great deals to choose from, like jumbo packs of Pampers baby dry nappies and pants, now half price, only $5.99 each. Now there's something to smile about. Morrison's. Majority of stores and online, subject to availability, was £12 each, 42 to 86 packs, ends 11th of May.
In an uncertain world, there's one thing you can always rely on. If your BMW needs a helping hand to get back to its best, your local BMW centre is here to help. Now with 20% off selected services when you book online. Take advantage of innovative ways to get your car the care it needs, including genuine BMW parts that come with a 2-year warranty and a handover that follows the latest government guidelines. You can be certain that your car is ready for the road ahead. Search BMW service to book at your local BMW centre today. T&C supply, participating retailers only. Offer for online pre-booked and listed services completed by 18th of June. Not applicable for bookings made by mobile app. Offer may be withdrawn at any time.
Have you got big decorating or DIY projects planned? Then get into action and get to your local Leyland SDM. You'll find thousands of
bringing an end to their marriage after more than 25 years. They have decided together that they don't want to spend the next 25 years together. And we're hearing from many listeners who've been in a similar position. Martin is next.
Good evening, Eddie.
How are you?
Very well indeed. Now, we were together for 21, 22 years. Fantastic for a lot of the time, but it degraded and we didn't enjoy each other and we didn't look forward to seeing each other. And one of us had to do something, I thought, and I did. You know, I left, I found myself another property, somewhere to live. But myself and my ex, it's a no for us. We are still friends. We go together 3 times a year, obviously when the countries are down. Last year I bought her a car and she always buys me Christmas and birthday presents. We spend Christmases together.
So, wait a second, what's the difference?
Because we don't get on each other's nerves. Do you get me?
Well, I'd like to hear more about how you got on each other's nerves and how this arrangement is better.
We just seem to be able to really get on each other's nerves when we were in a confined space for a long period of time.
So is this about living together versus not living together?
Indeed. You know, the intimacy is gone. We are separated and properly separated, but we get on. We are perfect friends. We talk to each other.
And were you married? Were you legally married?
No.
Right.
We were, but we lived together for 20 odd years.
Right.
And had a child.
Right. I mean, on the face of it, it sounds like you could have stayed in the relationship. You could have stayed married, but just lived in separate houses. I mean, it's not that unconventional, is it?
Yeah, but that sort of things has gone. I don't know if you get me.
I do. Are you seeing someone else now?
No, absolutely not. You know.
And what about your ex?
I don't know. He doesn't tell. So if that's fine. If he's not, that's so fine.
But you're happier now, both of you.
The four of us are both at peace.
That's nice to hear, Mark. Lucy's in Winchester. Lucy, I know it's not your real name. You're not really in Winchester, but tell me about you. Hi, Lucy, you there?
Oh, hi. Hello.
Fine, right. Tell me about you.
I met my husband when I was in my mid-30s, and he was already in his mid to late 50s. And neither of us, I never really thought about being married, but we just got on really well, and we got married. This was like 15 years ago. And then really, as soon as we got married, I hadn't really realised that he had an absolutely burning desire to have a child. And I couldn't have a child. And then he was so keen that in the end he wanted to go and try and find a surrogate to have a child with in America. And I went along with it for about 4 years saying yes, yes, yes. But actually inside I just felt no, no, no. And my response was to lose a huge amount of weight and become very unwell. And then when it reached a critical stage, I got finally sought help. And in my recovery from being so unwell, with the help of therapists and stuff, I finally was able to speak up and say, I love you, you are the love of my life, and I just can't start a family with someone who's nearly 60. By then he was 65. And we were undergoing and sitting on a couple therapist kind of sofa, and the guy was saying, I've never really met a couple who are sitting there speaking so sensitively and lovingly to each other on the sofa, and yet there's this thing which neither of you can compromise on. He just couldn't bear to drop the idea, even when he was approaching 70. And in the end, this guy just said to us, look, we could go round and round the hedges, but... and also living under the colossal, crushing weight of my husband's terrible disappointment about this baby thing. It was like living under a massive, massive cloud. Anyway, I can say it's 2 years now since we did divorce. And we've just become very, very good friends. I feel that it's the best of what we have at the beginning. We're a support bubble during lockdown. And on Sunday I went and made lunch for us at the farm where he lives. And, well, sometimes it's exquisitely painful. I thought on Sunday, why did we have a support? But I don't think we could have, I don't think either of us could have lived happily together really anymore.
Lucy, thank you. And Erica says, I left my partner after 30 years together, exhausted after trying for years to make him happy. Not possible in the end. The grief of regret that I didn't leave sooner is sad for us both. Both lives could have been very different. Honesty is the best policy. Don't pretend to be happy if you're not. At the end of our programme every night, COVID 1 year ago, and on the 4th of May 2020, the TUC warned that the government's draft plans to get employees back to work could not be supported, as workers' health would be put at risk. This was TUC General Secretary Frances O'Grady.
We certainly can't recommend them in their current form. The problem is the government is asking us to trust to employer discretion, use words like consider social distancing, consider having soap or sanitizer available. I mean, frankly, that's just not good enough. There are huge gaps in the guidance, nothing on PPE or testing.
Matt Hancock announced that a new contact tracing app for managing the outbreak would be piloted on the Isle of Wight.
From tomorrow, we will begin to pilot, test, track and trace on the Isle of Wight, starting with health professionals and rolling out this week to all citizens. I'm grateful to the huge enthusiasm shown by islanders who know that by participating in this pilot, they're at the forefront of helping get Britain back on her feet.
On this programme, we heard from Dr. Michael Veal, lecturer in human rights at UCL.
The UK has taken an outlier approach and actually chosen an app that has recently had quite a lot of approach that effectively got a lot of outrage in Germany and forced them to switch their version to what's called a decentralised approach rather than a centralised approach. I heard in the press conference at the end that things like personal information is not being qualified as that. This is not the view of the Information Commissioner or the view of legal academics looking at this. This is not anonymised personal data. Every Bluetooth emission from this app can be linked and is linked back to a specific device by a central server, which is not the way the systems work across Europe.
The global death toll from COVID was 261,492. That was the news a year ago today, May the 4th, 2020. Tom Swarbrick with you tonight at 10, next on LBC at 7 o'clock. Ian Dale.
Thanks, Eddie. On Thursday, 40 million people will go to vote in various elections that are taking place all over Great Britain. There's a parliamentary by-election in Portugal, elections to the Scottish Parliament and Welsh Senate, mayoral elections, among others, in London, Liverpool, Birmingham, Manchester, Bristol, West Yorkshire, Tees Valley, plus elections to English county councils and for police and crime commissioners and many district councils too. I want to know what's guiding your decision on who to vote for, and do you vote differently in general elections to others? And at 9, I want to talk about education for children with special needs. Why? Because an LBC report shows they're 6 times more likely to be excluded from school. What are the challenges in providing a good education for children with special needs?
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 7. The trial of 2 former British soldiers accused of murdering an IRA commander in 1972 has collapsed. They were formally acquitted after a judge ruled statements given by the ex-paratroopers could not be used as evidence. Joe McCann was shot dead in Belfast as he attempted to evade arrest. His daughter, Anya, spoke outside court.
The judge was right when he used the word appalling to describe the failure of the state at all levels in relation to the murder of Joe McCann. The RUC failed, the criminal justice failed.
Solicitors for the 2 former soldiers have called for an urgent independent review of prosecutors' handling of the case. A police officer has gone on trial accused of the manslaughter and murder of the former Aston Villa striker Dalian Atkinson. The jury heard a taser was fired for 6 times longer than standard during an altercation in Telford in Shropshire in 2016. PC Benjamin Monk, whose trial continues at Birmingham Crown Court, denies the charges. A doorstep vigil is taking place in Kent for murdered police community support officer Julia James. Detectives who found the 53-year-old's body in Ackholt Wood in Snowdown a week ago haven't identified any suspects. Local residents have been urged to remain vigilant and to tell people when they go out. This woman lives nearby.
I think it's a little bit too close. It's very scary. At the moment, we're not walking the dogs. It's too risky. I'm very scared.
A murder inquiry started after a 15-year-old boy was stabbed to death in Bolton. The victim knocked on the door of a house in Great Lever to ask for help after he was attacked earlier this morning. He died from his injuries in hospital. Officials have described a rail crash in Mexico City as the most terrible public transport accident in the country's history. At least 23 people are known to have died after a concrete beam supporting an overpass collapsed onto a busy road. And Odeon has confirmed it will reopen the vast majority of its cinema screens in the UK on May the 17th. It's the first day on the government's roadmap when indoor venues can reopen in England. Screenings will be limited, including empty seats between groups of guests and staggered start times to reduce queues in foyers. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 46 at 69.23. Pound buys $1.38 and a euro 50. And the weather, a band of showery rain moving south across central parts of the UK, then clear spells following from northern and frost in places, a low of -1. From Global's newsroom, I'm Thomas Woods.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The News Hour with Ian Dale.
Hello, very good evening. It's Ian Dale with you until 10 o'clock tonight. 3 minutes past 7 is the time. The News Hour headlines. The UK reports just 4 coronavirus deaths, but attempts to force indoor dining before May the 17th through the courts fail. 2 former paratroopers accused of murdering a member of the IRA in 1972 are acquitted due to a lack of evidence. A police constable appears in court with the third accused of murder.
The News Hour with Ian Dale. This is LBC.
The UK has reported a further 4 coronavirus deaths and 1,946 new cases in the latest 24-hour period. Just 1 death within 28 days from a positive coronavirus test was reported in yesterday's daily figures. Well, it's good news, but the government is sticking to its roadmap. Hospitality bosses today attempted to force the government to allow indoor drinking and dining before May the 17th. The High Court has said no. There's growing pressure from Conservative MPs and others for the government to speed up reopening. Boris Johnson has insisted he won't be bringing forward any of the roadmap measures. As evidence of the move with LBC's Westminster correspondent Ben Kentish. And Ben, I'm not sure that was a great surprise, that High Court decision, but what kind of pressure is the government coming under?
It's certainly come under pressure from its own MPs here. We've been speaking to some Conservative backbenchers throughout today who are once again and increasingly unhappy about the pace at which restrictions are being lifted, or as they say it, not lifted quickly enough, because we know, or we think, that May the 17th will be the date on which Boris Johnson confirms that things are on track to take the next step, and it's a big step. It will allow finally the mixing of people indoors, the opening of indoor attractions and indoor hospitality like pubs and restaurants, a big step. But for some, as you say, it's still too slow. When you look at the data and you look at the fact that case numbers are back to where they were last August, the number of deaths plummeted, that hospitals are much, much more empty than they were, and of course, Ian, that's before you even get to the fact that getting on for, well over half now, more than 60% of people have had a first dose of the vaccine, and about 1 in 5 have had a second dose. Things are looking very, very positive, and it was put to Boris Johnson's spokesman, for example, today. Surely the data is much better than you expect. Given that, will you look again at Rome? Ian, the answer was very, very clear. Boris Johnson's spokesman saying there are no plans to deviate from the data. A second dose, things are looking very, very positive, and it was put to Boris Johnson's spokesman, for example, today. Surely the data is much better than you expect. Given that, will you look again at Rome? Ian, the answer was very, very clear. Boris Johnson's spokesman saying there are no plans to deviate from the dates in Rome. That's the intended position, at least for now.
There are no plans is always a phrase which means well, there could be. Now we're still waiting to hear where and when we can go on holiday, and you've also got some news on the digital vaccine passports.
Yes, looking like this might not be in place in time for that big date is, it's looking like it could be under 10 countries that are on that list initially. But ministers do expect that to increase quite quickly as we go through June. So by the time of the summer holidays in July and August, there should be many, many more. But yes, as you say, when it comes back to passports, these will be needed to allow British people to travel to many countries in the EU, for example. It looks like, it sounds like, the NHS app may not be ready in time for that to happen. So there will have to be some sort of alternative, whether it's another app, whether it's an email, whether it's a paper passport, all unclear at this time. But Ian, when Boris Johnson spoke to was asked, will that digital technology on the app be ready in time? He said this: there are other routes to achieving the same goal. Well, that sounds to me like the answer is no. The government is rushing to work out what it can do instead. It's not, of course, the first time that there has been a significant delay when it comes to the NHS COVID-19.
Just a quick word about the by-election in Hartlepool. There's a new poll out, and also Jessica Elgott from The Guardian has just tweeted that she has information that Labour's internal polling shows that they're heading for a massive defeat. Now, this would be calamitous for Keir Starmer if it happens. I mean, local by-election polls are notoriously unreliable, so any Conservative that's counting their chickens maybe ought not to. But on the face of it, it would be a major development.
It would be a significant development. In some ways, it would be a huge shock, given that seats has been Labour for many, many years. In others, even less so, given that the last general election, the Brexit Party picked up a lot of votes, and when combined with the Conservative vote at that election, it massively outweighs the Labour vote. So that, in that sense, is not a surprise. That would be setting the line that Labour is likely to take if they do lose the seat. But you're right to say a word of caution here. That poll is a small sample size. As you say, by-election polling is notoriously difficult. It is all to play for, but there's always a pretty good indication here that you get from watching what the political parties are doing in these events. Boris Johnson has visited Hartlepool, I believe, now 3 times. It is fair to say that Conservatives would not be sending the Prime Minister all the way up there from London unless they thought they were in with a pretty good shot of taking a seat that, as you say, would pile pressure on Keir Starmer if indeed that happens.
And thank you. That's Ben Kentish, our Westminster correspondent. You're going to be hearing a lot of him over the course of this week. Now, the trial of 2 former British soldiers charged with the murder of an IRA commander in 1972 has collapsed at the Crown Court in Belfast. LBC's senior reporter Matthew Thompson has more.
The trial has collapsed due to a lack of evidence. Joe McCann was shot in disputed circumstances in Belfast in 1972 as he tried to escape capture. He was himself an active member of the official IRA. The court heard he'd been responsible for the deaths of 15 British soldiers. The 2 former paratroopers, who can only be named as Soldier A and Soldier C, were in their 20s when the incident took place and are now in their 70s. And the trial collapsed because 2 key bits of evidence, interviews that the soldiers had given about the incident, first in 1972 and again in 2010, were ruled inadmissible by a judge last week. And that's because the initial statements they'd given after the shooting in 1972 fell foul of a host of fairness issues. They were ordered to make them by a superior officer. They weren't conducted under caution. They had no legal representation. And the 2010 interviews that had been conducted by the Historical Inquiries team that was set up after the Good Friday Agreement to investigate Troubles killings, those were also ruled inadmissible. The judge said it was remarkable that the accused soldiers had been arrested and put on trial for murder without ever having been arrested or interviewed rather by police. And the bulk of the prosecution relied on those testimonies, so without them the trial collapsed. Joe McCann's family have said they'll apply to the Attorney General to open an inquest into his killing. And speaking outside court, his daughter Anya accused the British state of failure.
The judge was right when he used the word appalling to describe the failure of the state at all levels in relation to the murder of Joe McCann. The RUC failed, the criminal justice failed, not only in this case, but in the case of many other families.
This was the first trial for some time involving former members of British forces for things that happened during the Troubles, but 4 more are at the pre-trial stage, and around 200 former soldiers could still potentially face prosecution. That's prompted protest, political opposition. There have long been calls for an amnesty or some way of dealing with Troubles prosecutions, but it's fraught with problems, not least because anything that applied to soldiers might have
veterans from the Overseas Operations Bill. He remains Conservative MP for Plymouth Moorview and joins us now. Johnny, very good evening. How did this case ever come to court?
Hi, Ian. So let me be clear. The Overseas Operations Bill was never going to have scope for Northern Ireland veterans, but there was a promise that legislation would be brought in line with that bill from the Northern Ireland Office that would provide the similar levels of protection to those who served in Northern Ireland, and obviously I gave those commitments. It was not forthcoming, and I left my job. How did we get to this stage? Successive governments have failed to deal with this issue. Essentially what happened today in Belfast was the crystallisation of successive political failure that the judge rightly called out. I mean, it wasn't even close. The evidence wasn't even close to being admissible, and I think it's just a real tragedy to watch. Actually, of course, for the soldiers who've had their lives decimated over the last 10 and 11 years, but also, the family of Joe McCann, who were promised they'd get some sort of justice out of this by a legal system that is sucking in a fire hose of public money. It's all a bit of a disgrace, really.
So where does the blame lie here? Because from what you've just said, it sounds as if the blame lies with everybody.
I think it squarely lies with politicians, absolutely. I think the legal system will do what the legal system does and operates within the envelope, if you like, that they are encouraged to operate within. But I do think that we, if we make promises to our people that we will protect them from a sort of relentless, vexatious nature of claims and prosecutions without any new evidence, then we should probably do what we said we'd do and make sure we bring in that legislation. And unfortunately, we failed to do that.
But surely the prosecution authorities in Northern Ireland have some blame here too, because if the judge ruled that the evidence was inadmissible, surely somebody in the Northern Ireland equivalent, I don't know what it's called, the Director of Prosecutions, or the Crown Prosecution Service, somebody should have worked that out before the case started.
Yeah, I think there's serious questions for the PPS over here. I do think they should be held to the same standards as people like Phil Shiner in London. I think if you see their statement tonight, if I worked in that organisation, then I'd just had that ruling from the judge. I may have a little bit of humility or self-reflection, but I don't think we're going to get any of that from the PPS. And we have to, I think, as legislators and politicians, provide leadership in this space and prevent abuses of the law.
Were you sacked from your job, or did you resign, or were you resigned?
I was sacked, Ian.
I mean, why did it get to that point?
Because I was always going to go if these individuals came to court and we had not done what we said we would do, which I repeated a number of times from the dispatch box on behalf of the government and Secretary of State of Northern Ireland, that we would not leave these veterans from the Northern Ireland conflict behind. In the event we did, we passed the Overseas Operations Bill, and we did not have concurrent legislation for armed forces veterans of Northern Ireland. My position was untenable. I wanted to sort of go with minimal fuss and just state my position in dispatch box, leave, and then come and support the trial out here. Unfortunately, the machine does what the machine does, and I was out of my ear before I could do anything about it. But everyone's going to get sacked once in a while, haven't they?
Oh, it's happened to all of us, I can assure you. Johnny, thank you very much indeed. That's Johnny Mercer, Conservative MP for Plymouth Moorview. Coming up in a moment, police officers appeared in court. A police officer appears in court charged with murder and manslaughter of a former footballer. You're listening to the LBC News Hour. I'm Ian Davis, 7:15.
LBC. If you're a freeholder or a right to manage company director, you'll know your sector never stops. So it's good to know that when your block is looked after by ABC Estates Block Management Team, our family business will never stop looking after you. Service charge collections, we never stop. Insurance, we never stop. Proactive and reactive maintenance, we never stop. Full transparency, we never stop. Non-stop block management services from Aldermartin, Baines and Cuthbert. Call 0800 888 6688 or visit abcestates.co.uk.
What does it take to help a teenage girl living with cervical cancer? Making a nice cuppa, fetching a blanket, giving a bowl of advice.
customers hire the people they need for over 20 years. That's why they rate us excellent on Trustpilot. So if you're looking to grow your team, do it with a team you can trust. Total Jobs. Advertise today at totaljobs.com/hire.
Yesterday, you weren't thinking about starting a business. You were thinking, I can't be the only person who makes birthday gifts for their dog. So today, you are thinking about starting a business, and you joined NatWest's free online business builder course to help you work out your target market and how to reach them. Then tomorrow, super excited, you get the name at Happy Birth Dog on Insta and start planning how to take your pooch-friendly prezzies global. Search NatWest Business Builder to sign up. NatWest. Tomorrow begins today.
For the taxi drivers who deliver people home, and the midwives who deliver through the night, to everyone making sure our post is delivered on time, we deliver. McDelivery is open late and here for you. McDelivery at participating restaurants. Delivery fee applies.
If you're travelling with us, make sure you book ahead to reserve your socially distanced seat. We're cleaning our trains more than ever, and digital tickets help keep contact to a minimum. Unless exempt, a face covering should be worn at all times. By following guidelines, you can help keep yourself, others, and our colleagues safe too. For the latest passenger information, visit avantiwestcoast.co.uk. Avanti West Coast, wherever you're going, we're right there with you.
Everyone can now get free rapid COVID-19 tests twice a week. They show your results within 30 minutes. They also show you're doing what you can to protect your loved ones, your friends, your workmates, and that you want to keep life moving again. Around 1 in 3 people who have COVID-19 have no symptoms and are spreading it without knowing. That could be a friend, a relative, a workmate. It could even be you. Rapid tests are easy to get from nhs.uk/get tested. Let's take this next step safely.
Leading Britain's conversation. Ian Dale, tweet at LBC.
19 minutes past 7, a police officer has appeared in court charged with the murder and manslaughter of a former footballer. The jury heard that former Aston Villa player Dalian Atkinson was tasered for 33 seconds, 6 times longer than standard, before being kicked, leaving bootlace prints on his forehead. Benjamin Monk has denied any wrongdoing. LBC's reporter Josh Giltrap has been following the trial at Birmingham Crown Court.
The court's been told about the hours leading up to the death of former Aston Villa star Dalian Atkinson back in August 2016. PC Benjamin Monk from West Mercia Police is on trial accused of murder and manslaughter. His colleague PC Mary Ellen Bentley Smith is also on trial accused of assault. The jury heard how on the night of his death Dalian Atkinson was acting erratic, banging on the door of his dad's house in Telford in Shropshire in the early hours of the morning. His father's neighbours called the police when they were concerned at the sight of Atkinson shouting and demanding to be let into his father's house. When PC Monk arrived, he used his taser twice on Dalian, but the third time it worked. Atkinson fell face first into the road. The courts heard neighbours' reports that from this point on, Atkinson was unresponsive and no threat to the police. However, the jury was told that Monk then continued to keep the taser trigger held down for 33 seconds. A normal taser phase is just 5 seconds. On top of that, the jury were told that PC Monk kicked Dalian Atkinson in the head twice, and PC Mary Ellen Bentley Smith used her baton to hit him whilst he was on the ground. The court also heard how Dalian was unconscious and unresponsive by the time the ambulance arrived, and sadly he had a heart attack and died shortly afterwards. Both officers have denied the charges against them. Their trial is expected to last between 6 and 8 weeks.
Josh Giltrap reporting. Death rates on smart motorways with the hard shoulder permanently removed are higher than those on conventional motorways, according to official figures. Deaths on such roads have surged as more have been rolled out across the country, while on normal motorways rates have fallen, despite smart motorways being dubbed the safest roads in the country. Well, let's speak to Hugo Griffiths, motoring journalist with Auto Express. Hugo, very good evening. The official figures show one thing, but I've been reading an article that you wrote last week saying exactly the opposite.
Yes, indeed, and it's a question of over what period you look at the figures. So the figures that came out today show that fatalities on live lane fatality rates were higher in 2018 to 2019, but they also show they were lower in 2015, 2016, and 2017, and in the 5-year period they were safer. The Department for Transport says we need to look at the long-term figures as there's volatility due to driver behaviour and traffic changes in individual years, so we need to look at 5 years. I think we also really need to look at the road network as a whole and not take motorways in isolation. So here's a couple of stats. Motorways carry 20% of traffic but have just 4% of fatalities on them. Rural roads take 43% of traffic, so roughly double, but see more than 10 times as fatalities. That's 57% of fatalities take place on rural roads. Whether drivers hear about congestion on the radio or their sat-nav diverts them, people avoid motorway congestion and they will come off earlier than planned or avoid motorways completely, go onto these smaller roads. If there is congestion, they'll try and avoid the jams. This is a hugely complex issue. It's a very emotive one as well. But just as we should remember the people who tragically lost their lives on smart motorways and the families they leave behind, there were 1,752 fatalities on the roads in 2019. 653 of those were on urban roads, 1,000 nearly were on rural roads, and just 105 were on motorways.
Well, I've learned this on my various speed awareness courses because, people's natural instincts are that motorways are the most dangerous form of road, and they just aren't.
Well, that's exactly it. That's why planners want to keep people on motorways, because they are so much safer than other road types. So there are risks that change with smart motorways, and there have been errors, certainly in terms of communication, and I think in terms of respecting drivers' very valid fears, that have been made. I don't think that the rollout has been particularly successful in terms of bringing people on board, as it were. And I don't think that the negative press has been brilliantly handled, that this narrative has been allowed to build. But, widening is not possible in many circumstances. It's either not affordable or, we have motorways running past major cities and we cannot expand physically. So we have to increase capacity, and smart motorways are effectively the only way to do that. Now, if we as a nation want hard shoulders reinstated in every instance, then that's a conversation to have. But we need to realise that if we do that, congestion on motorways will build because there isn't that capacity. People will head to more dangerous roads to avoid that congestion on motorways. And on those more dangerous roads, on the A and B roads, collisions and fatalities are far more likely. So the question is, do we want to do this?
I can sense a phone-in coming on, but probably not tonight. Hugo, thank you so much. That's Hugo Griffiths, a motoring journalist with the excellent magazine Auto Express, to which I have a subscription. Now, it's just 2 days before we head to the polls, with voters in Hartlepool set to elect a new MP on Thursday. A by-election has been triggered by the resignation of Labour's Mike Hill, and it's looking like the traditional red wall Labour stronghold might not be straightforward. A new poll by Survation out today puts the Tories 17 points ahead in the constituency. LBC's Charlotte Lynch reports from Hartlepool.
This seaside town in northeast England is one of the remaining bricks in Labour's Red Wall, now at the centre of a crucial by-election for both of the main parties. In 2019, a blue Conservative wave swept across the surrounding constituencies, the likes of Redcar turning Tory for the first time ever. It stopped just short of Hartlepool, but Labour lost almost 15% of their vote share. It's a town united in its desire to succeed, now split on the right party to get them there.
Labour Party just took Hartlepool people for granted.
I don't think this is the type of area that should be voting for Tories, in my opinion.
I think it needs a change. Yeah, it needs a fresh set of eyes, definitely.
I've voted for Labour all my life. I've just been brought up with Labour, so just following their footsteps.
This year, Labour's candidate is a familiar face. Dr. Paul Williams lost his own seat, Stockton South, to the Tories in the last general election.
Labour had lost people's confidence when we lost the general election in 2019. Things have changed massively since then, and people are willing to give us the time of day, willing to listen and engage with us. It's a huge leap forward. The positive news is that we're under new leadership locally, and we're under new leadership nationally.
And this will be the first real test of that new leadership. It's up to Sir Keir Starmer to keep the tide at bay and persuade people to stick and return to their roots.
Keir's been here with me 3 times. People have really warmed to him. Just seeing him naturally walking around on the seafront, having conversations with people, they like him.
The Conservatives see this as the perfect opportunity to knock down another brick. They took 7 seats from Labour in northeast England at the last general election. They're hoping investment they've put into surrounding areas, many of which voted in a Tory MP, will sway the people who weren't convinced back then. Their candidate is Jill Mortimer.
In the last 4 years or so, people have seen how much the area's changed, how much investments come in, how much opportunities come in. I want to be a strong voice to get a piece of that pie with the rest of the Tory MPs to get regeneration, jobs and apprenticeships into Hartlepool. We get that investment in and we create jobs and apprenticeships. The free port, at the Port of Hartlepool is going to create 18,000 quality jobs. That can only be good news.
That's something the other parties insist that they can secure too. Liberal Democrat candidate Andy Hagan has been here before. This will be the third time he's stood for the party in his hometown of Hartlepool.
Hartlepool is the poor cousin on Teesside, really. People do see all this investment go. They want a politician who is fighting for Hartlepool's fair share. Really, regardless of who's in government, everywhere should get a fair share.
It was Brexit that changed things here, an area that voted overwhelmingly to leave. 69% wanted out. In the 2019 general election, 25% of the vote share in Hartlepool went to the Brexit Party. It's since rebranded to Reform UK, who are hoping to keep their popularity. Businessman John Prescott, and no, not that one, is standing for them.
Hartlepool's very independently minded as well, so they're not scared to vote for an alternative, and that's what we're offering in this election, a real alternative to the two main parties, against all the sleaze and the cronyism and the corruption. People are fed up with it here and they're looking for an alternative, and that's what we're offering.
An election of this kind in Hartlepool has never been so unpredictable. A total of 16 candidates are contesting the seat, which has never belonged to anybody other than a Labour MP. Also standing, Rachel Featherstone for the Green Party, Hilton Dawson for the North East Party, David Bettany, the Social Democratic Party, Nick, the Incredible Flying Brick for the Monster Raving Loony Party, Steve Jack for Freedom Alliance, Gemma Evans for the Women's Equality Party, Samantha Lee, Independent, Chris Killick, Independent, Adam Gaines, Independent, Claire Martin for Heritage, W. Ralph Ward Jackson, Independent, and Thelma Walker, Independent, endorsed by the Northern Independence Party.
I've rather lost the will to live after listening to that list. That's Charlotte Lynch reporting from Hartlepool. Time for our business roundup now with Andy Sylvester, editor of City AM. Andy, good evening to you. Now, what's going on in the manufacturing sector, which we talk about a lot on this show?
We do. It's going great guns. Closely watched monthly index called the PMIs recorded their highest month-on-month growth in manufacturing in the UK since 1994. 27-year high. That's driven obviously by the loosening of lockdown restrictions, whole host of new orders coming in. The only sort of clouds on the horizon are still continuing issues around supply chain and the big B word and Brexit. And also slight concerns in the car industry, which we talked about before, about the shortage in semiconductor chips. But all around, good news.
Now, Odeon and Cineworld are going to be opening up on May the 17th. It seems ages since cinemas have been open.
Yeah, indeed. Remember that? The sort of slightly sweaty atmosphere and cold popcorn. Yes, they will all be opening on the 17th of May as the high street kicks back into life. Share price is not doing too much today, as it's been largely priced in. But it is a sign that these companies, which some said may not make it through the pandemic, have sort of ridden a combination of furlough schemes across the world and also rent reductions to survive. The question will be, and it will be for pubs as well and for many, many shops, is what happens when life goes back fully to normal? What happens when people are paying their full rent, full taxes, etc., if footfall isn't back to where you want it to be?
Now, footfall may not be normal in cinemas and it may take a long time to get back to normal, but Amazon have had, well, a fantastic time during the pandemic. They've had £44 billion worth of sales in Europe, but paid no corporation tax. Nice one if you can get it.
It was logged in Luxembourg, and yes, paid absolutely zero corporation tax to the Grand Duchy. They have paid bits and pieces of tax across the rest of the continent, obviously, good of them. But yeah, I mean, this is basically the last hurrah, I think. It's quite clear that across the world, governments are moving to legislate on a cross-border basis, not just across Europe, but frankly across the world with a set of minimum standards to ensure that as we move into what might even be a digital-first world when it comes to shopping, the places like Amazon are still paying their bills.
OK, thank you very much, Andy. That's Andy Sylvester, editor of City AM. In a moment, we're going to be talking to the co-leader of the Scottish Green Party and the health spokesperson for the Conservative Party in Scotland. You're listening to LBC. I'm Ian Dale. It's 7:31. Thomas Watts has the news headlines.
The trial of two former British paratroopers accused of murdering an IRA commander in Belfast in 1972 has collapsed. A judge ruled historical statements given by the former troops could not be admitted as evidence. A French minister has suggested the government could cut electricity supply to Jersey in a row over fishing rights. It's an escalation of a dispute over new rules governing access to Channel Islands waters. Rescuers are continuing to search the scene of a metro train crash in Mexico City after a concrete beam collapsed. At least 23 people are known to have died in the accident on one of the busiest public transport systems in the world. A band of showery rain moving south across central parts of the UK tonight. Clear spells following from the north, allowing a frost in places. A low of -1.
LBC.
That's the soothing sound of a barbershop quartet that have found the better way to buy a quality car from Kazoo. All Kazoo cars pass a thorough 300-point inspection, come with a 90-day warranty, roadside assistance, and a 7-day money-back guarantee. That's one whole week to make sure they love it. Can you buy a quality car that's guaranteed to leave you happy? Kazoo, yeah you can.
New Vodafone Pro broadband. The only broadband with super Wi-Fi boosters for reliable Wi-Fi in every room. Or you can leave for free, guaranteed. So whether you're learning in the loft or streaming from the sofa, now you can be unstoppable with new Vodafone Pro broadband. Invincible broadband at unbeatable prices from £35 a month. Vodafone. Together we can.
Up to 3 boosters provided at no additional cost. Leave with no early termination fee within 30 days. Receive your third booster of receiving speeds below 10 megabits per second. Terms of verification, vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
Yesterday, you weren't thinking about starting a business. You were thinking, I can't be the only person who makes birthday gifts for their dog. So today, you are thinking about starting a business, and you joined NatWest's free online business builder course to help you work out your target market and how to reach them. Then tomorrow, super excited, you get the name at Happy Birth Dog on Insta and start planning how to take your pooch-friendly prezzies global. Search NatWest Business Builder to sign up. NatWest. Tomorrow begins today.
Notice anything different about me?
No, I hate this. Is it a hair? No, she had that done last week, and I noticed his brownie points. New shoes, no good with those last Christmas. Handbag. Yes, handbag. I mean, I wouldn't notice that, would I? Oh, but it doesn't look new.
Well?
No?
Good.
Oh, with invisible hearing aids, you'll feel different without looking different. They're available in Specsavers Advance range from £495. So Specsavers Hearing.
Authentic Lebanese cuisine by Marouche. Exquisite comfort food. Our restaurants are open for takeaway and deliveries. Wherever you are, we'll try and get it to you. Call in, order through Uber Eats, delivery and Just Eat. Enjoy legendary Lebanese food at home from Marouche. Fancy recreating your own dishes at home? Discover the authentic ingredients imported from Lebanon that we have available at marouche.com.
Right, you know what to do. Same deal as last year. Let's go for a take.
The Mayor of London and London Assembly elections are taking place on
Thursday.
Thursday. Got it.
Let's try that again from the top.
Yeah, understood. The Mayor of London and London Assembly elections are taking place on Thursday. Find out how you can take part at londonelects.org.uk. Have your say.
Great, that'll do nicely.
At 3, we understand why it's called running a business. When you're running from call to call, running to collect orders, and running up bills. Run your business without running out of data. Get 3's unlimited data plan for just £14.17 a month. That's 30% cheaper than the other big networks. Search 3 Business.
30% cheaper than EE, Vodafone and O2 based on equivalent 24-month plans. Price excludes 20% VAT. See 3.co.uk/terms/business. T's and C's apply.
Attention, please. Here's something I bet you didn't know. Not all supplements are created equal. You see, in HealthSpan, we only use vitamin D3, which absorbs into your body more effectively than vitamin D2. Our Optiflex glucosamine contains 40% more pure glucosamine than standard glucosamine sulfate. And our OptiTurmeric absorbs 7 times faster than our standard turmeric. What a hard-working bunch. Well, that is the HealthSpan way. We're HealthSpan.co.uk. Vitamins and supplements in-store and direct to your door.
Ian Dale, text 84850. This is LBC.
7:36, Rob Harris joins us, global sports writer for the Associated Press, for a sports update.
tons, past 220,000, and there are hundreds of thousands of new cases a day. This is the big, glitzy cricket competition that takes place every year, attracting some of the biggest names in cricket. They're all signed up to the 8 franchises as part of a draft system. So there are currently 11 English players out there, including England's limited overs captain Owen Morgan, who has to get back along with the other players now, and they'll be subject to the mandatory 10-day quarantine on return from India in hotels as it stands, given India is on the red list. And so many questions, perhaps why it's taken so long to suspend the competition, and surprised it even got underway a few weeks ago, given the worsening situation in India. They managed to play about half of the competition, and it's unclear, although they say postponed, when it will actually resume, if indeed it will at all.
Now, Jose Mourinho, he was sacked by Tottenham a couple of weeks ago, but he's returned to management with an Italian side. I would love to see Jose Mourinho manage a team that didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah, he's back in business, back in work for next season with Roma. A surprisingly rapid appointment for him, and he's taking charge of a team that's currently 7th in Serie A. So very similar predicament to the one he's just left in Tottenham, and certainly perhaps he might not necessarily be guaranteed the finances he's been used to in the past to try to build up a team. So it's a real challenge, but he's won Serie A in the past, of course, with Inter Milan. He led them to a treble, and that was the only time he has managed in Italy. So yeah, a big challenge. It's a young team with a few aging players, ones that will be familiar. Edin Dzeko, one of their stars at the moment, but they've currently trying to overturn a 6-2 deficit against Manchester United in the Europa League. The second leg of the semi-finals is on Thursday night. Mourinho won't be in charge in time for that, but he's replacing Paulo Fonseca, whose departure was announced this morning just ahead of Mourinho's appointment.
Now, you're at the Etihad in Manchester at the moment. We all know what happened at the weekend at Old Trafford. Are any signs of protest there?
Outside, there's a pretty large crowd of City fans with their flares to greet the team buses, but not a protest as such, because, of course, unlike some of the other clubs, they're very pleased with their ownership in terms of the investment put in from Abu Dhabi. That means they're so close to reaching a Champions League final for the first time. Although they did oppose the Super League, it puts them in a bit of a difficult position in terms of obviously opposing that decision, but not the actual leadership themselves. But certainly no fans, of course, still allowed in the stadium due to the pandemic, but they made their presence felt outside with a series of flares, blue flares lighting up the skies, quite a heavy police presence as well to safeguard against any difficulties. And just a reminder of how long it's been since there were fans here. I'm actually standing at the moment in front of the betting board for Manchester City against West Ham, which was back in 2020 in March. So it shows how long ago, and all the odds are still on the board here.
I think we probably lost that. Rob, thank you very much. That's Rob Harris, global sports writer for the Associated Press. A metro overpass has collapsed in Mexico City as a train was travelling over it, killing at least 23 people, including children. It's the deadliest incident in decades in the city's metro system, one of the busiest in the world. David Agren is a reporter for The Guardian in Mexico and joins us now. Horrific. This sounds absolutely horrific, David. Just take us through what's happened.
Well, last night at about 10:30 p.m. local time, it was on the newest metro line. The train traveling on an overhead track fell into the street. Basically, the beams collapsed and it crashed, toppling at least one car. And now we've got 24 people dead, including 3 children. Another 78 have been hospitalized by this, and there's a lot of hard questions that are going on in Mexico City, because this is a metro line that was opened with a lot of fanfare in 2012, as being modern and taking a public transport system that's seen better days towards something modern. But the track has just been nothing but problems. It had to be closed for a period in 2014. They had to reinstall the track. Earthquake caused damage in 2017, so just seems like it's one thing after another.
David, thank you very much. We'll leave it there because the line is very, very bad. It's David Agren, reporter for The Guardian in Mexico. To Israel now. Benjamin Netanyahu is rushing to form a government ahead of a midnight deadline. There's few signs that the country's longest-serving leader can end more than 2 years of political deadlock following an inconclusive snap election.